Hello, and welcome to this week's morning movement mobility session geared towards seniors, but anyone of any age can benefit from a little mobility, stretching. There'll be a little bit of balance work today. So, all you need is potentially some space, maybe a yoga mat, something comfortable to lie on, and your body. So, we'll go ahead and get started. Laying on the ground for our whole first circuit, we're going to start with some glute bridges. And so this we do think of as a strength exercise, but it also is great for hip mobility as we go into hip extension. So before we start, try to just tighten your core muscles a little bit, like you're bracing for a light punch in the stomach, and then maintain that pressure as you lift and squeeze your glutes. This is extending our hips to counteract a lot of the sitting that we do in a day. And so just raising up with control and back down, keeping this really active by remembering that core tightness and squeezing the glutes. There's a way to do this where you're a little more relaxed and you're kind of not holding anything in. But if we keep that tightness, we can make it a lot more active and engaging, even without a band or added weight. We'll do one more. And then we're going to flip onto the stomach for your second mobility exercise. It's going to be a Superman prisoner to T. And you can relax your legs. Start with your hands behind your head and forehead just barely off the ground. Extend your arms into a T and then bring them back behind your head. Maybe just the fingertips touching and then extend. You'll notice it helps to keep the core a little engaged for this. If you needed to rest your forehead down, if it was a little intense for the neck, that's totally okay. Just keep your chin tucked to your chest and think about really engaging all these muscles in our upper back to do the work. We'll do one more. And then rest. We'll come into a seated position for the third one. And then as always, we'll repeat each circuit twice. We're going to try to sit with a really straight back and legs outstretched, as straight as you can. If they need to be bent or one leg needs to be bent so that you don't feel a lot of pressure in your lower back, that's okay. Just make yourself comfortable, but think nice tall posture thoughts. And then have your thumbs starting at your shoulders. Then you're going to reach all the way up, straightening your elbows, and come back down. Reach up. We're working that overhead mobility here. You could also do this seated in a chair or standing if this position were a lot for the hip flexors or the lower back. But you'll notice throughout this whole circuit, we have just light core engagement to support the positions that you're in. Reaching up. And it's not so much the hands going together as it is the elbows straightening at the top of the movement. Again, sitting tall, thumbs to shoulders. We'll do one more. And rest. So then we'll go through this circuit one more time. We'll give you a moment to get into that glute bridge position. Hands just by your sides or on your core if that's a nice reminder to brace your abs a little. And then lift and squeeze and back down. Feet are just a little bit apart in this position. And depending on your knees, you could have your feet a little further away from your hips. Really, like all our mobility exercises, It's working within that range of motion that's comfortable and finding the position that's comfortable. So you don't have to force it. It's not like a big stretch where you're trying to, reach for your toes and feel a really intense stretch. It's more working within that comfortable range of motion. And as we grease that movement pattern over time, you'll see improvement. We're going to do one more. And then we'll go back to the Superman prisoner, hands to T. So again, on your front, forehead just barely off the ground, fingertips touching, reach out to a T. Make sure your hands don't end up back here. Sometimes it's hard to tell where that T position is. So just make sure your hands aren't too far below your shoulders when you extend. And you can focus on your breathing during this one. Notice if there's a tendency to hold your breath. If it gets challenging, you can drop your forehead back to the floor. Think about the muscles on the back of your shoulders, your shoulder blades, that upper middle back. We'll do one more. And then we'll come up to that seated position or wherever is comfortable. Legs out in front of you, nice and tall, starting with your thumbs at your shoulders, reaching up and back down. Thinking really tall thoughts, like you have a string pulling the top of your head to the ceiling. Maybe on this one time in your exhale with the reaching overhead. You'll notice some of our movements are similar to strength movements, just with less load, like weight, but we're doing them slowly so that if you were to maybe go and do an overhead press, you would have even better form, having worked on it in this mobility capacity. We'll do one more. And rest, and we'll come up to a standing position for our second circuit. So this first one, we have a little bit of a 2-in-1. We're going to start with some knee hugs. Option for this one is to slightly lean yourself against a wall if you need a little bit of balance support. Or if you're okay testing your balance a little bit, just do it freestanding, tucking one knee in towards your chest and releasing it, just a gentle tug. We're doing this a few times before going into a single leg balance to work on that body awareness, a little bit of balance and coordination. And so now we'll go into choose whatever leg you like. Try to hold that opposite knee up as high as you can, maybe at 90 degrees, with that foot a little bit in front of you. If you need to be against the wall still, that's totally fine. Think about being tall, not collapsing into that hip. You could have hands on a wall or a chair. And then we'll switch sides. Think about spreading your toes as you lift. Kind of pushing away from the ground can be a nice way to find some balance during these. Try not to tense anything in the upper body. Just let it be relaxed and tall. Make sure that foot isn't tucked in, but it's a little out in front of you. Might work the quad a little bit. And then bring it back down. Alrighty, our second one is going to be more for the side and obliques. So going to have hands behind your head or at least one hand behind your head, and then making sure that you're trying to move as much just sideways as you can. You're gonna bring one elbow down as you stretch, and then come back to center. Elbow down, thinking about stretching through this side, and then crunching a little bit to come back to straight. Stretch and straight. Sometimes we forget to work all of the directions that our spine moves in. We do a lot of flexion, bending forward, but often we forget about the lateral movement that our spine is meant to do. Now we're going to go to the other side, thinking about stretching here, and then pulling to shorten that side to come back up. And again, making sure that you're not bringing that elbow forward, you're just going to the side at your own speed and back up. Lengthen and shorten that side. One more time, lengthen and back up. Very nice. And then our third one is going to be some heel and toe walks. So we'll give you an angle where you can see the floor for this one. We're going to do heel walks for maybe about 5 or 6 feet. Then turn around and be on your toes, taking steps for about 5 or 6 feet. Heels, going at your own pace. It might be even better to do it off a yoga mat if yours is a little sticky. And walking on those heels. And toes for the way back. One more time, heels. This is working some ankle stability and balance. And rest. Alrighty, then we're back to the top to repeat these one more time, starting with those alternating knee tucks. We'll just give you a side angle so you can see them staying nice and tall. Bringing one knee up and then the other. Just a gentle tug towards your chest. Not squeezing too hard. Compressing that hip flexor. Stretching a little bit of the back of the hamstring as we lift up. We'll do one more on each side before we test your balance one more time. And maybe start with whatever leg you didn't start with first the last time. So I'm going to start with my left leg on the ground, thinking tall thoughts, bringing that leg forward, trying to feel the ground with my foot. Really tall again, like you have that string pulling the top of your head to the ceiling. Just breathing. It's okay if that leg needs to be lower, as long as the foot's in front of you. That's perfect. And then lower it. Find your focal point, and we'll lift the other leg. A little tightness in the core, squeezing your glute a little bit. All of those things can kind of help you anchor into that balance. This is also good practice for the body responding a little bit. If you shift to the side, engaging to come back to your center, relaxing the upper body, and set that down. Wonderful. Then going back to our side bends, feet are just a little bit apart, hands behind the head, one side at a time as you bend to the side, but really think about lengthening this side and then shortening it or crunching to come back to the top. So stretch and squeeze to come back to the top. One more. And we'll go the other way. This is one that sometimes you might feel really tight at first if your body's not used to much lateral movement, but the more you do it, the more progress you'll see. So just meet yourself where you're at. If your range of motion only goes that far, it's totally okay, don't force it. Just do whatever feels comfortable and within your ability today. One more time. And back to center. Wonderful. All right, then we're back to the heel-toe walks. You can even do mine on the floor instead of the yoga mat. So thinking about toes lifted as you walk, no rush, across, and then toes on the way back. Maybe you're feeling like you can have those toes a little bit more lifted this second round. That's always nice. Maybe you feel like you can be a little extra off of your heels on the way back. Again, whether you're barefoot or in shoes is totally okay. If this toe walking irritated your toes, you could always repeat it later in shoes. It just gives you a little bit more padding to work with and a nice straight surface. And rest. Alrighty, we're heading into our third circuit, which is going to start with a little hamstring mobility and a little core engagement with some Frankensteins. I'm going to have arms straight out, again, nice and tall, raising one leg and then the other, just as high as it naturally goes. Try not to kick too much, but a nice controlled speed up and down. Lifting that leg, not moving the arms up and down. Everything just stays nice and still up here. We'll do one more on each side. Wonderful. And then our second one, again, getting some lateral movement. We're going to take a wide stance with toes slightly turned out. And then we're going to shift our weight into one hip and come back up. And then the other side, shifting into one hip and back up. It's really important that your heels stay on the ground. And a visual that's sometimes helpful is pretend there were a bench behind you. And this way, I'm trying to sit on that bench, and this side, tapping down to the bench. That helps keeps you from that knee going too far forward. It's definitely okay for it to go forward a little bit as long as that heel stays on the ground. You're obviously getting a little adductor stretch, some hip mobility. Taking your time with this one, only going as low as is comfortable for today. We'll do one more on each side. And rest. Wonderful. And then that third one is going to be back to some upper body. We're going to do a forward, backward halo. So starting with hands just ever so slightly interlaced, you're going to bring them as far back behind your head as you can, and then back in front of you. As far behind your head without slipping into an arch. You're going to still keep that nice straight torso position back behind you. If that were a little much, you could always hold a band if you needed just a little bit more space between the hands. But it's also okay if your arms can't get that far behind your head just yet. Back to the front. Nice and tall. Making sure to breathe for one more. Then rest. Wonderful. So we'll repeat this for a second time. First one being Frankenstein's, nice and tall, not leaning back too much to kind of counterbalance, lifting one leg at a time. And thinking a little bit about stabilizing with your core. That hip flexor is getting a nice little bit of engagement by lifting the leg. We'll do one more on each side. Good. And then we'll go into that lateral lunge. Again, wide stance. How wide it is depends on your hips and how tight they're feeling today. Toes slightly angled out if that feels good. And shifting into that hip with the other leg straight. Sinking down and back up. It's really a shift to the side is a good way to think about this one. We're shifting as you're sitting back. So again, today we're incorporating a lot of movements that could be strength movements. If repeated or with extra weight, it might feel like a strength movement today. And that's wonderful. Strength and mobility have a lot of overlap, like a Venn diagram. One more on each side. And come back to standing. And we'll do that forward, backward halo one more time, starting with arms in front and just bringing them maybe to the back of the head, back of the neck. And back in front. This one really for the shoulders. Working them through that range of motion. Fingertips just slightly interlaced, or hands could be a little bit apart if that's where it needs to be today. Last one here. And rest. And we're going to end with two things back down on the floor. The first one is going to be a side lying quad stretch. So propped up on your elbow, you could lay all the way down, bottom leg straight. We're just pulling that quad or pulling that foot back towards you to stretch the quad. Make sure you keep your core pulled in a little bit on this one just to support the stretch. Not tugging too hard, but just trying to feel that stretch. And then release it. You can flip or spin to get the other side. This is a great one just to think about your breath. And to notice if you feel more of a stretch in one side than the other. Totally normal. And release. And then we're going to do some dead bug holds. So for this one, back to lying on your back, arms and legs up to start with a little bend in your knee. And so the most important thing we're going to think about is pushing your lower back into the ground to engage the core. You'll notice it kind of tilts my hips and pushes my rib cage down. And then you're going to lower opposite arm and leg until you feel that core really kick on. The max you could go is hovering each right above the ground, and we're just going to hold it for 3, 2, 1, and slowly bring it back up. Take a breath in and out. And then other side, lowering while making sure you keep that spine glued to the floor. Lowering until you feel your abs really kick on. 3, 2, 1, and bring it back to the top. And we're going to do each of those one more time, and you'll be done for the day. So again, back to that quad stretch, pulling that foot back towards you. Your foot may be here, maybe it's tucked in tight, just so that you feel a nice gentle stretch. Take a breath in and exhale. And then flip or spin onto the other side. As per usual, this is a great 20 to 30-minute session to do before you go into some cardio or you go into a full strength session, getting in some more strength exercises under load so that you feel that challenge. You should feel ready for all sorts of activity, or at least just a little warmed up for your day. And then find your way onto your back. Arms and legs up, knees slightly bent. Press that spine into the ground. That's your top priority. And then lower opposite arm and leg until you feel the core kick on. If you lose contact with the ground with your lower back, that's your sign to stop. And slowly bring it back up. One breath, spine to the ground, and then lower opposite arm and leg. Hold for 3, 2, 1, and slowly bring it back to the top. All right, well done. Next week, there will not be a live class, so feel free to even watch the first one since it might be a little while since you've done that one or any of the other videos, and we'll be back with another live class in 2 weeks. You can find more tips and exercise ideas and suggestions on the HelloStrengthSeniors Instagram page. Also ways to support this branch of HelloStrength there. Thanks for joining me, and tell a friend about this class today if you enjoyed it.